The meeting of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School Committee is now in session. It is Wednesday, February 28th. It is 7 p.m. We're at the Charlton Middle School. We will all stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we will observe a moment of silence in honor of the 17 students and staff members tragically killed in the school shooting in Parkland, Florida on February 14th. First order of business, approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting on Wednesday, February 14th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a couple corrections, hang on just a second. One of them is on page 5, under proposition 2.5 override. Second sentence, I think the last word is words. And then on page, did you find it, Sandy? Okay, on page 7, on the third paragraph, under the smaller van, if we could include on the second sentence, the beginning for small sports teams needs. And then the final sentence, if the purses could be included at this time.
Okay. All right. We have those corrections or additions. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Okay, that brings us to Citizens Forum this evening. Do we have anyone that would like to come forward to speak with the committee? Okay, you can come up to the table, state your name,
Just have a seat.
town. You can have a seat.
Either side, if you're lefty or righty.
It does either way.
I'm not all right, trust me.
Ken Court, 63 West Dudley Road, Dudley. School committee has a thankless job trying to do more with less every year. And our wonderful state seems to think that they can rewrite or ignore their own laws that they have passed. They seem to, we're outside 128, so we're kind of like the hinterland. If we're lucky, they throw us a bone every now and then. But on that note, with regards to the funding of the schools, there's a little bit of an uprising happening inside 128, which might be a good time for us to join the bandwagon. Mayor Marty Walsh is looking for $25 million additional from the state to fund education. The city of Everett recently had to take $5 million out of their general fund to give to the school committees, the school funding, and they still had to do some layoffs. So now there's some people inside 128, where the world is the people out there know exists. They're kind of pounding the table a little bit. The city of Brockton has a lawsuit pending against the state, suing them for failure to supply adequate funding. The Worcester School Committee is considering it, and has sent that, asked council for an opinion as to whether or not they should join. And we're out here I think, transportation, I believe we get 62% of the funding, we're supposed to get 100%. And you folks are aware of all the other unfunded mandates that they send out, and all of a sudden, we're supposed to take care of it. Only thing politicians know is when you put their feet to the fire. Now, Senator Fatman and Mr. Durant came to one of the recent selectmen's meetings and said, we're working on it. We're working on it. Well, okay, you're working on it, you're nice guys, but there's only one thing they understand, is when their feet are in the fire. So I would like to recommend, consider it, and I think you would be in your interest to talk with the other district schools, because you're all in the same boat. I read the newspaper. Every regional school district, oh, we don't have money for this. We don't have money for that. We're short on this. We've got to go to the voters for this. We're going to have to cut this, that, the other thing. And all the time, the state keeps peeling away. They changed the formula, whatever the wealth formula is, I have no idea. But, it's time that they get told. And you always warned, I worry, based on their previous actions, when the tobacco settlement came in, all that money was supposed to go for cessation programs for tobacco. Right now, we get about 20% of that money goes towards those programs. The rest of it goes into what I call general slush fund. So, they're proposing a millionaire's tax, and it'll only be for education and transportation. I've got a bridge you can buy if you want to buy it, we'll leave that one. So, again, I think the time for playing nice is over, and give it a shot. I would recommend giving it a shot.
It's worth consideration. You'd have to look into it and see.
Yeah, I mean, I can find out talking to the other districts in the region, if anybody has taken this under consideration. I can read a statistic for those here that's real easy to understand and real powerful, I think, that since in 2008, Mr. Korch mentioned the wealth formula, and that's part of the change in the state funding formula for education. I won't go into all that, but in 2008, the state changed the funding formula to demand more from the towns and less from the state, from itself. And now this has hit our towns particularly hard because our tax rates were really low when 2.5 came in. And so in 2007, 2008, our towns were required by the state to contribute $11 million toward education. That was their requirement combined. Now this year, their requirement is $16.7 million combined, and that's an increase of $5.6 million, or 51% over 10 years. In that same time frame, state funding for our district, in other words, funding that came right from the state government, has increased by only $1.2 million, which is an annual increase of 0.46%. So it's a very powerful statement on how the change in the formula was meant to force towns to figure out a way to pay more. But those towns like Dudley and Charlton, who were low when 2.5 came in and can only raise the taxes 2.5 every year, are kind of stuck. So it's been a very devastating blow to our towns and as a result to our community as well. So that lends some credence to what Mr. Korch is saying. And I have no problem with looking into it a little bit. Later on tonight, I'm going to read a letter under communications that I just got sent to me on my email from Town Administrator Greg Valuconis in Dudley, which he sent to the state auditor. Mr. Korch, you're probably aware the state auditor has recently, not too recently, it was back around, I think it was in the fall sometime, completed a report on how to overhaul funding for regional districts. And so we're trying to put together a meeting which will involve all the people, many of the people that you mentioned in your discussion. And maybe that's something that it'll be a public meeting, and maybe that's something we can get some support at if it comes to fruition anytime soon. But there's a few things we can try to do.
When you look at the people in Boston, they have such a different demographic identity there. I mean, they have, we're like peanut, they're little raisins, and they're whatever. was an article in the Boston Globe a couple of weekends ago about the section called addresses in real estate. And it said, what $3 million buys in Boston? And they had two houses that they had, one in Concord and one in Arlington. And the taxes on these houses, just the taxes, were $35,000 and change and $40,000 and change respectively. Now, for people who can afford, who are in that demographic, who can afford to live in that area and pay just that for their taxes, okay? If they have to come up with, $500 or $1,000 for an override, okay, I guess I don't go to dinner this week. Where the kids can't have that extra class or do some other activity they'd like to do. But out here, I did the calculations on my override, what my bill would be, and I'm about $330. My neighbor across the street is $330, one next door to me is at $477. We're all senior citizens. Doesn't really fly very well. And I know it's the rock and the hard place. I think that time now the rock pushes back.
Mr. Disto, can I just add, and I just say, I appreciate you coming, Mr. Fortune, and talking, and having very valid concerns. But I just don't want to miss an opportunity to let you know that there is a bill that has been submitted by Senator Chandler for a commission to study the funding of regional school districts. And it's a companion piece to the study that the state auditor has done, similar to how the Foundation Budget Review Commission has studied the funding formula and recommendations have been made. We're working very hard across the state to advocate in regional school districts with our constituents, our boards, our governing boards, to push hard for the legislature to pass that commission, because that's where we're going to get the study of how the funding is coming up for regional districts. There is a high disparity in central Massachusetts to the towns that are being impacted, Dudley probably being the worst out of all of them. And any support that you could lend, there is a lot of social media advocacy that's being done to inform people within towns to support this legislation. So similar to how hard it was to push to get the foundation formula studied, and that was a 2-year process and the recommendations came out, we're trying to do the same for regional schools. And any support that you could lend and share that information with your friends and neighbors to push for that legislation would be very helpful. So there are advocacy groups right now that are working hard to look at a higher reimbursement rate for regional transportation, but we're trying to approach the formula process, which is where the towns of Dudley and Charlton are coming into trouble because of the amount of money they're being asked to contribute. That's the number that we're looking to change. That's the legislation that's going to get us the commission to be able to do that study, to go back and be able to put the power, behind the argument with Beacon Hill to change it.
Well, I love government. I took a whole lot of government courses in college, and they love to study things. And they put them in committee, and sometimes they live and sometimes they die in committee. And in my old age, I'm getting to the point where I refer to government as government, because it's just a question of priorities, what they want to do. For example, you take the lottery. All those funds were most of that funds was, I forget the exact percentage now, was supposed to go to local aid. That's not what's happening now. It all gets diverted. They start playing around with it, and then, well, we'll give you a grant for $500,000. What's a grant? A grant is the money the state already took from us in taxes, and we give it back to us, telling us how we have to spend it because they know better than we do. And of course, it's always minus a surcharge for handling. Excuse me, there are times when you just get a little frustrated with watching this continual thing. We've got to study it, and we've got to put it here. The thing is, the money's there. It's a question of priorities. what does the state want to do, what's important? And it gets to be important when people put their politicians' feet in the fire and keep them there.
And Mr. Korch, Mr. Desto will keep you informed on what we're doing to advocate for more money. And
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's going to bring us up to School Spotlight, Charlton Middle School.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Stein. Good. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you about something that is near and dear to my heart at Charlton Middle School. I'm going to give you a little brief update of why this group is here before I get into what we actually do. In our 7th and 8th grades, we have student council for students. We also have National Junior Honor Society. Yeah, there's a picture, absolutely, those kids in there. What we don't have is an opportunity for 5th and 6th grade students to have a voice or to take on some leadership roles within our school and within our community. So in the beginning of the school year, we set out with an initiative to create such a group. It was met with open arms by 12 individual students in grades 5 and 6. The group itself, when we formulated it, called itself The Voice, not to mistake it with the NBC hit show, The Voice, but these individual students were so excited to get connected within the community. So in our first meeting, we talked about what we would like to do and how we could make a difference. And after shuffling through some ideas of working with Masonic Home or working at the Senior Center, we decided to connect with Darlene Emco Rollins, who is the head of Chippin, the food pantry in Charlton. Now, there's a long history here. The 14 years that I've been at Charlton Middle School, we have donated thousands of dollars to the food pantry, and not to mention hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of non-perishable food items to support the families in Charlton, in our area. So it was a no-brainer for us. So we held elections. As a result of the elections, we have individuals here who are going to speak in a minute. Maggie is our chair of the group. She's going to talk a little bit, but more importantly, we formulated a connection with Chippin, and I brought Darlene here tonight. Darlene, if you would you say a few words about how this group has impacted your program in Charlton and how it's helped the community?
It's unbelievable. This has taught these kids to work as a team. They've been with me for a couple months now, 3 months, maybe 2 months, 2 or 3 months now.
3 full months.
They go in and they know what to do. They know about nutrition. They know about confidentiality, because they're going to see people coming in getting food, and they know that they can't talk outside the group that's in there. They know about nutrition. I don't have to tell them what they have to do anymore. They'll go and make boxes up, and we give big banana boxes. That's why everybody wants to come to Charlton. I must tell you, though, that Charlton is one of the only hunger-free communities around. And we're just having a problem not being able to feed people because of the influx of 3,500 people coming from Puerto Rico every day. So we are losing a lot from Worcester County Food Bank. We pick up 3,000 to 5,000 pounds of food a month, and we're losing a lot of that because it's going out there, which they needed also. So we don't get peanut butter anymore. So you guys have made fundraisers for peanut butter. So now I can give them peanut butter. We used to get 7 cases a week. We get 1 case a month of 12. Instead, they replaced it with black beans and rice. So you see where this is going. And Charlton, don't know what to do with it. But without these kids working with me, I work alone mostly. I do have a few people that I depend on so much. But these kids coming on a Tuesday afternoon, I look forward to them coming in. They run up the stairs. They're happy. What can we do? And it just makes my heart feel good because I started in 1992 with my Brownies and Girl Scouts, where we had 15 people coming in from Southbridge, and that was it. Now we have 250 people in Charlton registered. Not that they all come at one time, but that's how many are registered. They wake up now knowing that maybe their little next door neighbor they're sitting next to is getting fed because of them, that they're having a holiday meal because of them, that they're making up these boxes and knowing what to put in for nutrition. These kids have an attitude that I wish so many other kids did at this age, because boy, they're enthusiastic, they're always happy, they're always wanting to do something. I don't have to tell them, pick up a broom, you can sweep. I don't have to tell them that. They know what to put in the boxes for nutrition, and that's so important now, and their families get involved. Their families are donating food, and it's like it comes around in a circle where they know. And there's so many stories I could tell you if I had the time about the people and the kids in Charlton that have nothing. And these kids see toys going out for the holidays that we get, and realizing that there are kids in Charlton that have no toys except what we give them at Chip-In. These kids are fantastic, and the community should be very proud of them because they're my kids.
So to put it in perspective, when I spoke with Darlene after the first couple of meetings, I mean, she was in tears and expressed how happy she was that the children were working side by side with her. So just so everybody understands, every Tuesday from 2:30 to 3:45, we leave Charlton Middle School. We board a bus that's a little overcrowded at times, nevertheless, still gets us up to the town hall. And go into Chip-In, and we just do the job. And there's a smile on their face every single time. And everybody shows up, which is really, really nice. That kind of leads me into, I'll talk about my next initiative after that, but let me bring up Maggie Mullally, come on up please, Rachel Gormley, come on up, and Jacob Bowser, come on up here for a second. They are our 6th grade leaders within the group, and in the back I'm going to introduce all of you in 1 second, hold tight, okay? So what these 3 individuals have done is they've written a little paragraph about what it means to them as working for a group like this and making community connections. So Maggie, why don't I turn it over to you first, please?
Well, hello, my name is Maggie Mullally, and I'm in 6th grade here at Charlton Middle School. I am the chair and one of the first members of this group. After a couple of meetings, we were talking about how we could help our community. Then Mr. Packer said, "What about Chip-In?" We all agreed to it. Darlene, who runs Chip-In, was so kind to let us work here. We started with the basics, then after a while we started making boxes, organizing, and stocking shelves with food. Being a part of Chip-In puts a smile on my face. It makes me feel all good inside. I love being a part of Chip-In because 1, it gives back to our community, 2, I really inspire others to help with our community service, and 3, people have to realize that other people out there in our community are either poor, homeless, or starving. That's why we are helping Darlene with making boxes of food, because she's been doing this for a long time by herself or with an extra helper. There is a lot of preparation, and she needs the extra help. I have enjoyed my experience there so far. This has made a positive change in my life. No one deserves to go hungry. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Jacob Bowser. I'm also a 6th grade student and one of the 3 leaders, as he calls them. So mainly what Maggie said is we were thinking about how to give back to this wonderful community with great people and great schools. So we figured we should go over to Chip-In and give back to the community for people who are unfortunately not as fortunate as us to have safe places to live or enough food. So we went to Chip-In the day, and we put some boxes together and sent them out, and then I suppose the hungry people got fed.
They did.
As it goes. So it's just think about something for a moment. Imagine you're everything you were now, except you had nothing back at your home. It's a hard thought to imagine, isn't it? Unfortunately, this is how people are living now. But then Darlene, who this couldn't be done without, helped Chip-In grow to what it is today, and we helped out by cleaning it up and helping the people who aren't as fortunate as us. Thank you.
Rachel.
Hello, my name is Rachel Gormley, and I'm also a 6th grader at Charlton Middle School. I think we all, as a group, have loved our time at Chip-In. We all have done so many things, like help organize and make boxes of food. But I think the main reason we love to go there is because we feel like we're making a difference in our community. We have been going to Chip-In for 3 months. it always brings a smile to our faces, Mr. Packard's face, and Darlene's. She is the lady that runs the chip-in. We love to go there and glad to help out. It has really encouraged me to help out wherever I can. Thank you for your time.
Good time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Can I please have Jenna DeFrosi step forward? Jenna is a 5th grade student, part of our group. Jenna, would you like to add anything? Fair enough, Jenna, fair enough. Francesco, come on forward, please. Okay, Frankie, otherwise known, is the spark plug for us. Frankie, would you like to add anything about your experiences? Over to Aiden, come on forward, please.
Come on, Aiden, just
Aiden,
anything,
add.
just anything.
Well, what about you? Would you like to add anything about your experience with this group? If I go over 5 years, Emma, you want to say hi? Introduce yourself. Hi. Hi, I'm Emma. Sophie? Well, I tell you what, they may be shy right now, but they are the next leaders of this
I
group.
think
Sophie
Sophie
wants to say something.
I think
Sophie?
Come on, Sophie.
No.
I was going with the odds, Sophie, okay? I was over 4. Absolutely. So Emma Claire, and, well, I'm drawing back. Sophie Zazek, excuse me. Thank you very much. Guys, thank you very much. I also would just like to mention 2 other individuals who are involved. Cutter Beck, ex-student here, now is at Shepherd Hill, and also his sister Quinn. You can speak more to that, Darlene, than I can,
Yeah.
what they provided for you in your program.
Cutter came about 2 years ago and started helping out. He's also a Boy Scout working for his Eagle Scout now, and he's gonna work at Chipin repairing it. It's in the same homeroom I graduated high school in 1972. Yeah, and it's the same condition as it was then, so they haven't done anything to those rooms. But he's gonna fix it, and Quinn comes in and guides the kids. She's more their age. She tells them how she started the same way when they first came in. You know, she didn't know what to do. She was a little overwhelmed, and she's there if they have questions. She works right with them. They're great kids.
So
And
great.
it is unbelievable, because I started with my Brownies and Girl Scouts at this age, 27 years ago.
Darlene, you have our commitment moving forward that we will continue to work with you as long as you're there, okay?
you.
We'll continue to give back to the
I'm getting
community.
old.
I do want to talk for a second about what's next. We do have another plan in place starting Wednesday, March 7th. It's a CMS intergenerational after-school program in conjunction with the Senior Center. So that'll be going out, it'll be in my parent e-news that goes out. We'll have signups throughout the school. We'll be doing that on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday. We're making another connection within the community. So very much looking forward to it. Kids, thank you very much. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you. Good.
Now they're talking.
I love that. Volunteer like that. They understand
It's deep learning.
that, yeah. They were nice kids, too. Okay, that brings us to communications, Mr. Desto.
I have one that I literally just got, so I apologize, but I have to use my computer for this one. I know I'm not the perfect person to be using this because you can only see half my face now, but that's okay. Probably a treat, actually. Let's see, here we go. All right, so at the Dudley Selectmen meeting on Monday night, a meeting at which the selectmen unanimously voted to approve our request for a special election on April 3rd for an override. One of the selectmen requested that the town administrator write to the state auditor. There had been some research done behind the scenes, and I won't go into all that, but the long and the short of it is that I want to read just a piece of Greg Valiakonis' letter so that we all know kind of what's coming down the pike, primarily for the school committee's information. So, of course, he's writing to Auditor Bump and says that they have received the Modernization of Mass Regional School Structure Report that her office released. And then she says, Greg says, "We are officially asking for your help to work with us on a bipartisan, multi-town solution in creating a long-term solution that addresses the challenges detailed in your report. We are officially requesting a meeting with the state auditor to discuss these challenges and see if we could work together with your office, the state legislature, and the affected towns to create a permanent, long-term solution to address the problems, especially surrounding the shortcomings of the current funding formulas. The initial meeting would be attended by the Dudley Board of Selectmen, the Charlton Board of Selectmen, the Dudley-Charlton Regional School District, that's us, our state legislators, town managers, and other officials who may be instrumental in crafting a solution. And then he says that they'd be happy to host in Dudley. So just a quick little thing to let you know that the Dudley Board is doing some advocacy as well on behalf of regional school funding. And there's some hope that maybe we're going to be able to get face-to-face with the auditor, or at least somebody from her office, and work together. And at the meeting, the letter didn't say it, but at the meeting, they mentioned that other communities could be invited as well. So, thank you, that's all I have for communications.
How about our members?
I have something. I had the opportunity to attend a parental seminar at St. Joseph's Church this weekend, actually, and I wanted to share the information with everyone here in hopes that we can do something in terms of professional development. What it was a presentation by the District Attorney's Office on the opioid addiction problem. And it was really, really scary. What they did is they went over how you can tell if your loved one is using drugs, signs of an overdose, resources, Narcan, all of that stuff. But they also went over hiding spots that kids use for hiding their paraphernalia, for their drug stashes, things like that, that you would never imagine in a million years. And they actually brought examples of these types of things that I don't want to go into because I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but it's on this list. The consumption part of it, like the types of things that they're using now that you would never imagine in a million years. And also about vaping and how fast it is, so you can't even see that they're doing it half the time, and it's the size of a flash drive and often looks like a flash drive. So what I came away with after I talked with the person from the District Attorney's Office was, I know that we've done presentations for parents in the past and we've had a really low turnout, unfortunately. But at least from a teacher perspective, if teachers could be trained on what to look for, if we don't do that already, I thought that might be something that we might want to look at as a professional development thing. So I'm going to pass these very scary papers out so that you can each see.
Is there a website listed
There
on
is,
there?
yeah. So you can each see the types of things that they went over. It was an excellent, excellent presentation.
That's a good idea for professional development.
Thanks for keeping me awake tonight.
So you can look into that, Mr. Desto.
Well, in the meantime, I can direct people to the website,
Yeah.
parents and so forth.
And she did say that she would be more than willing to come back to our district for any purpose.
Do you remember what the presenter's name was?
It was Jill Woodridge,
Okay.
and I have her email address if you want it.
Anybody have any questions?
This is scary.
It is very
It
scary.
is. Okay. Any other communications?
Well, I just got a call from Mr. Koch. That's why I told Mr. Desto about it, and that's why he came to the meeting. He said the same thing to me on the phone, which he said tonight about the funding.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much the same thing.
And I don't know if any of the school members, I'm sure you've read this. We got this in the mail. It's February 2018. And it's on the meal charging policy, EFD. And that was in May of 2017, the USDA having a jurisdiction over federal school programs, released new guidelines. Now they've updated these guidelines, and one thing that I was interested in is, in addition, the document also provides updated guidance on the use of alternative meals. The changes in the guidance are designed to help districts generally avoid student involvement in the financial aspects of the school meal programs. The new policy requires the district to provide the same meal choices to all the students. And I remember in our policy, we did have the alternative. So maybe we can, the next time I'll put on the agenda, we can look over our policy. And if you don't have a copy, I can give you a copy of this, but everybody gets this in the mail. So that's, any questions on that? Okay, that concludes communications. That brings us up to superintendent's report, Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. It's 7:35, so we're probably approaching halftime of our varsity girls' basketball game at Shepherd Hill. It's actually a second-round playoff game. We were seeded third, so we had a bye. 17-3, I'll throw that in there. And we're playing my alma mater tonight, Holy Name, which is a very tough draw in the second round. But this is all a long way of saying that both our varsity basketball teams will be beginning playoffs, the girls tonight, and then the boys tomorrow night host Groton Dunstable at 7 p.m. And we're very proud of both of our teams and wish them the very best in the playoffs. Can't forget to mention that the boys also won the Clark tournament this past week for the second time in the last 4 years. I had a call from Sean Gilrain 2 days ago. Today's Wednesday, right? We're at a school committee meeting. So on Monday, I talked with Sean, and I said, Sean, you were superintendent 13 years. You never won a Clark tournament. I've won 2 in 4 years. So it's going well, but at least with girls basketball, boys basketball. So anyway, also want to mention that a week from tonight, March 7th, is our annual Family Comes First night, and a couple of things I want to say about that. And of course, everybody here already knows about it, but for the benefit of anybody who might be listening. Family First Night was something that came about in conjunction between a conversation with Mr. Foley and myself 4 years ago, where we wanted to do something that would just send the message, like literally send the message, not just say it, but something that we could do to prove that we really do understand that families matter, and they matter a lot. And as I've become more entrenched in this superintendent thing, you get to know the district better. Boy, there aren't very many nights that are really free. I mean, certainly homework for the older kids, but also just activities and events. And it's one of the things that makes us great as a district too. But, anybody in here who's a parent can vouch for the fact that there are very, very few nights when you have your whole family in the house with no commitments in that evening. And I bet Mrs. Reed hasn't had that since the last Family Comes First night. In fact, that's one of the only nights of the year, of the school year, that we eat dinner together as a family in my house, and I'm sad to say that, but that's the truth. So there's that. But what I want to really say, too, is and Kevin's not here right now, but I got to thank him, and I got to thank the board of the DCT, Dudley-Charlton Teachers Association, because I think there's a perception in the community that this is all the administration's idea, and that's not true. It is the teachers who are also making a sacrifice here, changing their curriculum, the show choir, they're changing their practice schedules, and so it's really a team effort, and I want to make sure that I mention that. So this is kind of a long one. That was a short one, scary. I want to mention the girls' track team. I don't know if anybody's been really following, but our Shepherd Hill girls' track team has qualified in 2 relays. I'm reading a quote from Coach Nicole Fossis. Has qualified in 2 relays for the national championship meet in New York City on March 9th through 11th. The 4 girls are sophomore Emma Sullivan, junior Rebecca James, senior Michaela Norton, and sophomore Maddie Marsh. And they've qualified for 2 events at the Nationals. This is a very prestigious meet with elite qualifying standards. It is the only high school national track championship meet. So there is, and it's considered the only true national championship in any high school sport. And our girls qualified for 2 events. Just a quick rundown of some of their accomplishments this year. This relay team has broken the school record 4 times this season and has taken a total of 14 seconds off the old record. That's amazing. They were the Division III relay champions, state coaches invitational champions, won the Division III state class meet, and finished 4th in the all-state meet. So this Saturday, they'll be competing in the New England Championships in Boston before heading to New York the following weekend for the Nationals. And Mrs. Fossis also says what I like to end with, which is even better kids than they are athletes. Hardworking, great kids, great representatives, and I think that at some point we should get them into one of our meetings and congratulate them, because there has literally never been a track and field season like this in the years that our district has been organized. A couple quick reminders. Women in STEM Night is March 13th. That's the night before our next meeting. It'll be 6 to 8 at Shepherd Hill, and we feel like it's going to be a great opportunity for our girls. Just to quickly let the school committee know that our statement of interest for the Shepherd Hill roof has been successfully submitted. So now we commence holding breath and seeing what happens. And finally, I want to just make a quick statement about school safety. Needless to say, the week when the situation in Parkland occurred, it's become really a watershed moment. I mean, there's been, according to the news, there's been 18 shootings since January 1st, but this one is different. It seems like it's going to be a turning point, and it's received a lot of attention, largely because the students there have decided that we're not going to take it anymore and have pretty admirably stood up, and in a pretty appropriate way as well. So I've gotten a lot of correspondence from families who are naturally concerned about the safety of their children. They're certainly not saying that, they don't think their kids are safe or anything of that nature, but just kind of asking, what do we do? And our safety plans, I'll get into a little bit, I won't go too far, but I'll get into them a little bit in a minute, are probably the one thing that we do in the public schools that can't be completely public. And I think that everybody understands why. If there is 1 in a million person out there who has harm on their mind and they know too much about what we do, well, that's not a good thing. But I can tell you the following and hope that it makes people feel a little bit better on this committee and maybe in the community. We have crisis plans at each of our buildings which are practiced regularly, and I mean probably too regularly. I know we've even had parents complain that we practice too much. These plans cover all conceivable emergencies, including active shooter situations. While I won't go into detail publicly about it, I will say that each school practices lockdowns, stay in place, and evacuations several times throughout the year. And these plans are made and practiced in conjunction with our local police. And every time we do a drill, parents are notified that we've done a drill. I think everybody's aware, all school doors are locked throughout the day. Any visitors have to be buzzed in. Additionally, after Sandy Hook, we took the added precaution of having every classroom door locked throughout the day. We allow teachers to leave their doors open while they're teaching. We don't want it to be like a prison. But the doors are locked in order to save valuable seconds in the event of a real emergency. We also have an added layer of security with a lockdown tool device that can be quickly and easily installed by teachers during lockdowns. All of our administrators are trained in the latest safety protocol, which is called ALICE. We have technology which enables us to contact police within a matter of seconds. Our police are incredible, and they've responded to our schools consistently in under 5 minutes when needed. We have outstanding supervision of all student activities during the school day and after. We have a resource officer at Shepherd Hill, who I would say is one of the most valuable people in our district. And the resource officer model really works when you have the right person. I am meeting with Chiefs Weiner and Maxfield this coming Tuesday just to review where we're at and what potential improvements we can make, including whether there are resources available to have additional resource officers, perhaps one in Charlton or perhaps one for the younger students, because the model works. It's not a military model. It's an educational model. And finally, I'll just say that still, despite all that, the best defense and one of our real strengths as a district is knowing, caring about, and connecting with our students. I've said this a million times. People who are loved generally don't want to hurt other people. And our staff loves the students very well. We're good at that. We follow the idea that if you see or you hear something, you've got a person that you're comfortable talking to in the school that you can tell that to. And while we've never, fortunately, had anything that rose to the level of what we're referring to here, there have been much smaller situations where students have shared with us, because they were comfortable talking to us, information that's enabled us to head off trouble at the pass. And so finally, because I know a lot of people are wondering, it's getting a lot of buzz in the media. Related to this, there is a lot of national buzz about a school walkout on March 14th. So I just want the committee to know that I met with the secondary principals today. and with input from our students, we are working on a plan that will be safe, organized, age-appropriate, and very meaningful from a civic standpoint. And information from each school principal will go to families by meaning the middle schools and the high school, will go to families by the middle or end of next week for what our final plan will be. We are not going to tell our students we can't do something, but we are going to make sure that we work with them to make sure that it is safe, that it's age-appropriate, that it's organized, and that they're going to actually learn something meaningful from it. I know that was a lot, I apologize, but there's a lot going on, and so I wanted to make sure that I put that out there.
I just have a question on the ALICE program, because I know in Worcester, the teachers voluntarily are being trained online for that. Do you have any intention of doing it for the staff or just the administration?
Well, right now, what we're doing is we've trained all the administrators, and they're kind of like in their faculty meetings, almost doing trainings with the
Okay.
staff, in conjunction at times with the police. We haven't really talked in great detail about training the teachers yet, but I certainly don't think that it would be something we'd rule out.
Okay.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
We enjoyed the training. It certainly makes a lot of sense.
Did someone come out and do it? Did you do it online? Because,
No, we all physically did it.
You did it, okay.
In various locations.
Okay.
I did mine at the Charlton Town Hall with a bunch of us, and then as the years have gone on, they've done them other places around the state, but we physically went,
Okay.
usually for 2 days.
okay.
And it's eye-opening, and it's sad that we have to talk about these things, but such is the world we live in.
Thanks.
And that concludes.
Mercifully, right?
Yeah. Okay, that brings us up to FY 2019 budget, administrator's budget presentation, and we have this evening special education and technology, so special education is the first. Mr. Ferrenti, come up to the table.
Righty or lefty, whichever you prefer.
To be over here.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Planty.
Now, the last time I was here at the table, I was over there and I was starting my career as your interim. So as I just started my 8th month, I was trying to figure out exactly how could I share everything I run into and experience and starting. I feel very fortunate to not have worked here for many decades. And I can say that because having been on the outside and working with a number of principals, you have, even if you guys weren't here, you have a very solid administrative team. So for me, that makes me very confident that in looking at ways to improve how we handle our kids with special needs, the principals are all on board. So in looking at the budget, I'll gladly answer any questions that you have. There are areas that we've identified that we want to look at closer, especially in our out-of-district placements, and looking at how efficiently we use our existing staff. Those are 2 key areas that we're constantly looking at.
Mr. Planty, I'm just going to call a quick timeout, make sure everybody has a copy of the, if not, okay, I'll make a copy.
I've got copies for everybody.
Oh, that's, okay.
Yeah, this is technology.
Oh, you have copies?
Yeah.
That makes more sense, okay, good, sorry about that.
This was technology, I didn't get that, get his. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry to stop your momentum.
I'm good. I probably needed to stop. I keep going.
Thank you.
Now, would you like me just to go over some highlights of the pages as we're going through, or if some of you have specific questions? Thank you. The presentation this year is probably a little different than last year. Last year, there was a school-by-school analysis of the teachers, of IAs, of speech-language pathologists. In reality, that changes every year, and that could easily change by month to month. So what I wanted to do was present to, I'll just hold on to this. I didn't put that in the budget. I'll take care of that later. I know, that's the place to be. Dan? Dan's gonna be over there.
Apron on the table is not Dan's fault. Just want to point that out.
So what I want to do is just present something as a district, as district-wide. And if you look on the front page, I have in quotes, respect tradition and embrace growth. What I have found since coming here, there's a lot of past practices, there's a lot of traditions, and those do need to be respected, but we also need to embrace a little bit of growth. We do need to look at our practices and make adjustments as need be, depending on our population and the kids that are moving in. What I'm hearing from my speech pathologist is that the younger grades, the language skills of our kids coming in are much weaker than ever before. So having heard that, I'm looking at, okay, tell me a little bit more. And that could include speaking with our kindergarten teachers to find out what skills are the kids lacking once they roll through the doors. That might require me to maybe shift some resources so our speech language pathologist can work with the kids sooner, because as we know, it's a pay me now or pay me later. The sooner you get to the kid and support them in the younger grades, the better off they are later on. Right now, we have 566 kids with disabilities. That's average around 14%. But we also have around 140 students on 504 plans. Those are kids that have impairments or disabilities that require access to the general curriculum, generally without needing specially designed instruction, but in reality, a lot of our special ed staff, including our speech pathologists, are working with these students just to make sure they have full access. So when you put those two numbers together, we have 17.7% of our population with an IEP or a 504 plan. I find that to be rather significant. We do have 16 chairs and a department head at Shepherd Hill, 31 special ed teachers, and 65 special ed instructional assistants. We have one BCBA. Her role is as our behavior specialist. She'll go to all 7 schools to try to assist with our more significant students to figure out what is motivating them and to determine how best to reinforce more appropriate behaviors so they can stay in district versus out-of-district placements. Within our school district, right now, we have close to 60% of our kids in what's called full inclusion, which means they're with their general ed peers at least 80% of the time. We have another 25% that are between 40 and 80% included. And we have a small number of students in what would be considered substantially separate. We're close to the state averages on all those numbers. We're probably a little lower in full inclusion than what the state average would be. And that's something that the principals are looking at on a daily basis. How do we get those kids more involved with their general ed peers? And be taught by their content specialists, as opposed to being taught by their special ed teachers. Because we find that our content specialists they've gone to school for the ELA, they've gone to school for math, and generally they are stronger in providing the instruction to our students. On the next page, under placements, these are for students who are in out-of-district settings. When you look at the column way over to the right, you'll see the tuitions. Those are significant. I try to break it down as far as grades K to 4 and grades 5 to 12. With our collaborative program, with the SWEAT Collaborative, we generally have more younger kids from grades K to 4, and generally their disability is more on the emotional category. With our private day program, our private day school program, generally the kids, of the 16 kids, 14 are in grades 5 to 12. And they were probably placed out at the elementary level when I looked at it when they first got referred out. The cost is close to $1.4 million, with transportation being a little over $400,000 to transport those students. So just doing a quick average, Mr. Matthew, help me if I'm wrong, that's close to $100,000 per kid if you end up sending them out to a private day program. What we're doing now, and we'll be continuing to do, is look at what conditions got those students out and if we can replicate those programs in district. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, because of the severity of the needs of the children. And as we talked, the gentleman mentioned about the money that comes from the state. We get reimbursed. You hear about Circuit Breaker. Circuit Breaker does not reimburse us for every cost for students going out. On average, if you have a tuition of $60,000, the state's only going to reimburse us $11,000, which means $49,000 we're on the hook for. We had 5 students return this year from out-of-district placements, which was great. But that sign, "Welcome to Dudley-Charlton," we've had a number of students move in who actually with IEPs that require an out-of-district placement. And we do honor that out-of-district placement. We've had some other students be referred from within our district, and we've had some students actually, one was actually sent back to us from Bay Path, because sometimes with Bay Path, if a student struggles quite a bit, they return back to us and might require placement. I'm anticipating more students to come back in district next year. But that'll be determined as we go through team meetings between now and the end of June. Additional costs in district, there's a line for contracted services. Contracted services are for those services that we don't have in-district staff for, because it wouldn't be cost-effective. And it could be for vision, mobility, deaf and hard of hearing. Because of the replacement of a position at the high school, we replaced the school psychologist with a school adjustment counselor. We still had official testing that needed to be done. That's also contracted out at this time. And we're also getting more involved with consultation from the outside to assist us with kids with Down syndrome, dyslexia, specific learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, as well as social emotional needs, with the goal of improving our in-district programming. Now, I will gladly do some more analysis of the numbers. I think my original pages, I don't know if I had 5 or 6 or 7 pages of stuff I wanted to show you. But in the interest of time, we boiled it down to just these few. So if you have specific questions, I'll answer them. Or if you want me to do more data crunching and meet back with you during maybe Budget and Finance Subcommittee, I'll gladly do that.
I just have a couple questions, Mr. Ferranti, and actually a comment. I appreciate you looking at this in a different light. I think this has been, very informative and helpful to see things in a different perspective than it's been presented in the past.
And I think it's easier to look at and understand. I thought that was good. So,
Can I go back to
Go
my
ahead.
questions? All right. So one of the questions that came to mind when you were going through your information was the piece regarding the substantially separate students that we have. And I'm interested in the segue that those classes of students have from building to building to building. Because I think when we're looking at the allocation of resources and whether or not we're set up for those, I know previously that has been a problem. So with the students that you're talking about, especially students that are moving in, if they're coming in younger grades, I'm wondering whether or not that's something that we can be planning out as we're doing a multi-year plan with the budget that we're considering the allocation of those resources. So I haven't seen the accordion where we've established classrooms and then as those population of students have moved up, that we've had a need to shrink the classroom on the other end. I know that we've actually taken that track from being on the Charlton side to now expanding to the Dudley side. So we're actually running simultaneously. Just in the historical perspective from the CPAC, we traditionally ran Charlton side and now we're expanding and we're running on the Dudley side as well. So we're not getting less students, we're getting more students. So just if you're going to be doing some analysis, I think it would be helpful to kind of plot out a year or two ahead if there is a need, a big swing from like the 2 to 4 level to the 5 to 8 or 5 to 8 to 9 to 12, that we are budgeting accordingly for that personnel. The other thing that I had wanted to ask is in that additional analysis, when we're talking about the students that we're servicing and with the contracted service providers, I know way back when, when we were looking at, even just the district didn't have a full-time BCBA back a long time ago. If we were to have a large bulk of contracted services for a particular need that we could project was going to be with us, you know, we have a bubble of students in the elementary, that we know these students are gonna be with us for 6 to 8, 9 years, whether or not we wanna switch that to coming to us to request that we really should be looking at hiring a person
Right,
versus
and
doing a contracted service.
And I believe, you know, even looking at the one BCBA, I believe it was several years ago, you actually had 2 behaviorists. One would be more for kids on the spectrum and one kid's for social emotional.
Well, my concern with the BCBA position has always been, if you're looking at the fidelity of what a BCBA does, and one of the things that they're doing is they're writing programming, and they're overseeing and looking at that, and I know that these people are also getting brought into meetings, and they're doing observations, and they're doing all of that piece. Based on the number of students we have, are we even being covered with the fidelity that that position should have with just having one? Or that would be a further analysis that I would be looking at, is it really to our advantage? I know other districts have turned around and have taken these populations of students and have brought in, you know, have brought in district NEC programs, and has helped in the ability to take, you know, out of district placements and bring them back in-house, because we're replicating a NEC model in districts. So those are just some of the things that we could be analyzing and looking at.
And NEC is the New England Center for Children. I was actually there today for one of our students. And they do have some in-district programs at some local, I believe Quabbin has a NEC program
Yeah.
as well. And it is an option, and that's one of those things we have to look at. But as you know, there's an awful lot of startup and investment when you
Yes.
try to create in-district programs. And there's an assumption that the same number of students with those specific needs are going to be with us for a long period of time. That may not happen. It's important to be flexible enough so that you can move your staff back and forth and adjust to the kids that are coming in. But yes, that ideally, if we could have an in-district program to service the kids versus sending them out, that'd be the ideal model. That's always our goal.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This troubles me greatly.
Don't try.
It troubles me no more.
I'm glad I have hands on tonight, that's all.
Technology, next. Dan, I think you should take this side.
Lefty.
We're safe.
Evening.
Good evening.
All right, so I want to start by highlighting a few of the things we've accomplished over the past year. As you remember, we had a lot of tech come in last year. We upgraded 3 computer labs throughout the district, so about 77 computers, redeployed all those computers across the classrooms. Replaced 210 obsolete Chromebooks in 7 carts throughout the district. Deployed 24 new Chromebook carts containing 690 managed Chromebooks and 30 Windows netbooks in all schools. Deployed 2 iPad carts containing 60 iPads to the elementary schools. We increased the internet speed from 500 meg to a gig on both sides. Established a web-based asset inventory system and barcoded and inventoried about 4,000 devices. Still have probably another 1,500 or so to do. Deployed the school brains notification system that administrators can now use to blast out information to parents, students if they choose. And then created and updated G Suite accounts for grades 2 through 12. Now with the Heritage and WL also have the accounts. And then closed almost 1,900 help desk tickets. Next section is really just a technology overview. It's pretty much the same thing that you guys saw last year. Just kind of showing what staff, students, administrators, and parents have access to. Obviously, one of the big tools that they use is G Suite with Google Classroom in there. Teachers have access to that. Students have access to, well, they have access to all the rest of the G Suite apps. Digital curriculum across math, science, social studies, and foreign language. As I said, administrators have access to the school grades notification system, and parents are able to view grades and assignments and whatnot for grades 5 through 12 in the School Brains Community Portal. I've included a few tables, like I've done in the past, just basically showing the major devices that we have, that students and staff have access to, as well as what we purchased over the past year. The third table actually shows the device-to-student ratio. We chose to just include computer lab, Windows Computer Lab PCs, iPad carts, and Chromebook carts. So we're making a little bit of progress there as far as getting closer to, decent ratio there. Technology goals and objectives. We'd like to accomplish a few things in the next 12 months. One is to continue to upgrade all off-warranty devices to try to maintain that or get to that 5-year computer, 3-year tablet, and 4-year Chromebook replacement cycle. We're going to continue to look at all of our options to be able to do something with the network infrastructure. Replace the layer 3 switches. Those are basically the core switches at each building, which allow those buildings to get online. Those need to be replaced this year at the end of engineering support in 2019. We have about 90 Chromebooks we want to replace. They're at end of life. And we need to start to prepare to deploy Windows 10 throughout the district, which is going to be a bit of work. Overview of the technology costs. Fixed annual expenses, pretty much the same stuff in this category that's always been in this category. It's $546,000. This includes, your hardware and your software, both web-based and classroom, as well as, hardware replacement. That first line item for hardware replacement was established in FY15 at about $187,000. That's what we're trying to use to kind of keep that cycle going and get everything replaced. Additional expenses, we have year 2 of 4 on the large purchase that we made last year. That's about $117,000. That covers that $457,000 worth of new equipment we purchased. Projects and upgrades, about another $117,000. Again, we have to replace our layer 3 switches. We have about $61,000 there for school requests. And I included the wiring project and the layer 2 switches, which would be all the rest of our network switches. Those are not included in that number, but we put those in there because that's the stuff that we really have to start trying to figure out a way to handle. Proposed technology budget is approximately $620,000. Again, that includes a lease payment on what we purchased last year of about $118,000. It also includes approximately $162,000 worth of E-rate reimbursement. Any questions?
Any questions?
Just to clarify, the wiring project, it's not included in the projects and upgrades? Is
Correct.
that number included anywhere in here, or is it completely separate?
It's not included in this, in any of my numbers here. That is the $1,006,000 that we, I believe we're trying to get through the cover over in the override.
Okay.
The layer 2 network switches, that's something that, they're at end of engineering support in 2020. You don't necessarily have to do them this year, but we are gonna have to get to those at some point. I believe the hope was to be able to take any money that we could get back in reimbursement from doing the wiring projects and put it towards that. So those wiring projects, if we can go through, now there'll be 6 buildings, not counting Shepherd Hill. If we can do that through E-rate, we will end up with roughly $247,000 in reimbursement, which would pretty much cover the switches. So I also put a 3-page document in your packets. Basically, it's kind of like a state of the network type of a document. It's what we provided as evidence during the DSE audit. I guess there's a question on there to describe the network, so that's in there. That kind of answers a lot of questions, or it kind of at least shows you what we're looking at right now. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that document.
Any questions? Thank you.
Great.
Thanks. Thanks, Dan.
Good report. FY 2019 Proposition 2.5 override. Mr. Desville.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Coin. A couple things that I would like for us to be able to put on the table tonight. First of all, I think important that, again, publicly to thank both the Charlton and Dudley Boards of Selectmen for unanimously approving our request for a special override election on April 3rd. We're now officially a go for that date. Each member of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committees in both towns have expressed their support for this initiative, which I think is pretty much unprecedented. So we're very thankful for that. Now, voting will be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Dudley Town Hall and Heritage School. Again, that's on April 3rd. With the committee's approval, I would like to begin posting important information to our website and social media sites tomorrow with a frequently asked questions document that we at the district office have been collectively working on. And we think it covers most questions that may arise and also has the ability to direct people where they can get other information. Very important to note, this document has been cleared by the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, as long as we don't mail it to anyone. So we can post it on the website, put it out on Facebook, on Twitter, have it be retweeted and forwarded and all that stuff. So that was cleared. Now, this coming Monday, my message to staff and to the school committee will be in relation to the budget, the override, and what each person, depending on his or her role in the district, can and cannot do relative to a ballot question. It's a little different for all of us, teachers, school committee, superintendents, even PTOs and those types of organizations. So I'll have something put out there for everybody Monday that will, sort of say everybody needs to know their role in this, and we don't get tripped up. In addition, we're thinking about, at this point, sending out 2 to 3 facts a day, smaller chunks of information each day until April 3rd, and maybe beyond that if necessary. And so at this point, it would be helpful if I could get the committee's input on the document, which I sent to you yesterday. I don't know that you had time to get to it, but hopefully you did. Well, I thought you might. Yeah.
I'll cover for you guys. A couple of them are just like little grammar things, so I could just tell you those afterwards. But
Okay.
the very first one, when you said in the third line, there's never been a wider gap between what we learn and what they should learn. To me, when I read that, I'm reading this as a person who doesn't really know the system well. Sounds to me like we're not doing a good job with what we're doing. The word gap offended me in a way. I would
Okay.
put something like, I just do something like this, there's a greater shift in what our students are learning to school and what they actually should learn, like a shift. I think gap sounds like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It can have a negative term. It
Well, the
can be
other-
negative.
What I failed to mention there, and one of the reasons that it is not effective, is that it's a nationwide thing, not a Dudley-Charlton
Right, it
thing
sounds like that,
necessarily.
yeah.
Right, so, yeah, I'll find a way to
Yeah,
reword
I
that.
would take out the word gap and put
Okay.
something, yeah, make it because it's negative. And you don't want to be negative with the very first question,
Yep,
okay?
but at the same time, I definitely have to find a way to emphasize that
Right.
we are really good, but things have changed so rapidly that we've got a long way
Well,
to
that's
go.
like the word like
you know.
shift or the emphasis
Yeah.
or something. Use the word shift or emphasis and want to
Okay.
make something of that.
I'll find the words.
Yeah. The third question down, several factors have conspired to, this is the third question.
Yep,
Several factors conspired to land us here, but I put in the 2 most important ones. I would say the 2 most, because you say,
Am I
stress
referencing
there were
2 things?
The 2
Okay.
most important ones have been blah, blah, blah.
oh, okay,
Then the 4th line down, where you're saying how the shift has been, the requirement was 11 million this year. The word there, are you referring to this town or to the?
The towns.
I know, but I know that. I would just put that, change it to that requirement.
or
Take
the
out
towns, I could just put that.
Yeah, because it was confusing from someone reading it. Okay? The
Yep.
next question, the third sentence, foster care, I would put in those struggling, because it sounds like the foster care kids might be struggling.
Okay.
It's another entity. Okay?
Yep.
The next one, you never mentioned anything about school choice funds. Do you think you should put in that they were using school choice funds besides everything else? Because that's a,
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it. I see what the
That's a-
committee thinks about that.
well, that's part of what's keeping us
Big
going.
part of it.
STEM is supported by that. So I put in school choice somewhere. And then this, okay?
Yep.
The next one, this one is and I think we all say it incorrectly, if the number represents to cover all fixed costs, it's gotta have the word increase in fixed costs, because otherwise it sounds like, you gotta have the word increase, because the increase, the fixed cost is 75% of our budget, not 1.5 million. And I think a lot of us will say fixed costs, assuming people know we mean the increase, but I think you should spell that out.
Okay.
And the last sentence, I would add something about, in that same page, recently revised, put something about the strategic plan. You have strategic initiative, which should just stress the strategic plan for 2018, to put that in, that this is tying in to help that out somehow.
Okay.
Next page, the second line, I would put, when you say technology infrastructure, I would actually put down estimated to cost, isn't that almost like 800,000, which we could put that figure in to show almost all wasn't that our thing, that most of the override is going for the technology? Do you want to spell out how much it's estimated to cost, you want to leave that blank?
I
Would
don't
be
know,
more
I think
effective?
I'd rather leave it out, but
Okay.
I'll hear
What
what
do
the
you-
committee has
I
to say.
think so.
Leave it out?
Because we're going to
I just wanted to-
definitely target it.
So would you put the amount in, how much it could come
Yeah,
up to, or
but
is
I-
it too vague? Do we know an actual figure?
We know the figures. That information is gonna be available in other
Later on.
areas. We've got multicolored graphs and everything.
Okay,
Ready
okay.
to go,
As long
so-
as someone shows it, how much
Yep.
that's gonna be a big chunk of the thing.
Yep.
Okay, the next question, second line, 800,000 from the current budget. I would put from this year's budget, because current, do you mean the one coming up or the one?
Right,
that's-
I struggled with this one.
So I would put this year's budget,
Okay.
or the 2017-18 or something, or 16-17, I guess, whatever, 17-18. Whatever, one of those dates.
Okay.
Okay, the last question at the bottom about explaining what happens if one of them fails.
Yeah.
I found it unclear. I knew what you was trying to say, but I think a person might not understand that just reading it. I put something like, if, to lower its budget, number one, to lower its budget in both towns, because you're gonna have to lower both towns, correct?
Right, to accommodate the town in which the override
Right, so,
failed.
but you'd have to, in both towns.
All right, so after assessment in both towns.
Right. And then I would add at the end of the sentence, we do have the town services of the town that did not vote for the override. For the town that did not vote for the override, because if we don't, the override's gonna devastate it. I don't know if you really need that.
You're saying in that same sentence?
No, the last sentence. This
Okay,
first
oh, okay,
option
I
would be
see.
devastating to the district, while the second option would be devastating to the town services of the town that did not vote for the override. Because let's say we went ahead
That's
with the
right, that's
assessment,
right.
Dudley would be killed, or Charlton's.
Right.
So I would put down to the town services of the town that did not vote for the override. Because we could still ask for the money, but it's gonna hurt that town
That's
that
right.
didn't vote for it. The next page, I found this one, and I know what you're talking about. I thought this was unclear about the average single-family tax bill. Now, when we went at the selectmen's meeting Monday, they said that the rate would go up $1.60 per thousand. I think that's a much better figure. What is an average single-family? To a layperson, what does that mean?
I don't know, this is what they use when they put it out, like,
I know, but wouldn't you think we
I
better
can
put
put
like?
the other one in there too,
Yeah,
though.
he told us it was $1.60.
I
That
think they
sounds,
said 300,000, didn't they?
well, they
An
were picking a
average,
house. What's the average? It doesn't say. Is that for a house of
It's like 250 or
250,
something like that.
to something like
Yeah.
that, but you don't spell that out, it just says, to me, I wouldn't know what that meant.
$1.60 would be, like
Well, $1.60 at 300 is
300,000,
$480.
right? If it was
160.
going up 300, almost $400, yeah.
Yeah. But I would, do you know how much it would go up in Charlton? Could you get that figure? I would
You
say
mean
something about it,
the
like
per
$1.60
thousand
per
figure?
thousand, which would lead to a house at 400,000 going up. You want
Yeah,
to actually-
Charlton
but
is.
Dudley told us it was $1.60.
Yeah, we have that number for Charlton too.
So I would put that in and say,
Sure.
which means that a house valued at such and such would be,
Okay,
but I put the actual, because that sounds much better, $1.60 sounds like nothing.
And the Dudley part is more than Charlton, it's because of the money that they owe us, because of the school spending.
So you would know that looking at that.
You don't know that, it looks like Dudley
Why are we
is
going up
a
more?
lot more than Charlton when you see that. They
Maybe-
don't
maybe
know
an-
that,
maybe
they
an
don't know
example
that
would be
little
good.
part.
I would
Yeah.
say something, a
Like,
little more
you know-
detail, because that's kind of hard.
Yeah, because they'll say, well, what are they basing Charlton's on, how
How
much
come it's
the
we're
house?
asking for 1.5 million in
Right,
local places,
well-
but then 100, yeah. But you can get those figures better.
Yep.
And then the next thing, the answer to the question, actually, the honest answer to that, no, but sort of yes, I think that's kind of flip.
It's conversational, yeah.
Yeah, do you think it's okay?
Oh, I can just put.
I don't know, is it kind of flip?
Sort of yes. No, but yes.
Yeah.
Because I want to say, I've been asked this a lot,
Yeah.
and I want to say, look, when it comes to the physical safety piece, infrastructural, all that stuff, we're not going to spare an expense on that no matter what. But the piece about providing emotional support in the schools is related to this budget increase. And so somehow I want to be able to say it is like, sort of, is really the answer.
Right,
Yeah.
it is, isn't it? Yeah, we'll leave it in there. But then I would, under the word, after emotional, you have period, these are all things, I take out these out and just make a comma, because it sounds like the mental health jobs can lead to acting out, when it's those things. I take out after deregulation, comma, sounds.
Oh, I see.
all
So
things that
you
come-
think it should be comma then all?
All things, take out
all
these,
right.
because it
Okay.
sounds like previous things. Other than that, it was nice.
Oh, thank you. Great job. Great. Other than that, you got an A.
It's a pretty picture.
Put any time into this?
Hey, that wasn't bad.
No, that's not bad.
It's not
That's
bad.
fine. That's what we do.
Well,
That's why
I
I'm
wanted,
bringing it
because
here.
I'm
I
doing
don't
it as a
want,
person who doesn't know
I don't want this to
background.
go out to the public and then everybody read it and be embarrassed by it, you
Yeah.
know, and say that's not speaking for me, so
Yep.
that's fine.
Okay.
I think I might have a score on the Shepherd Hill game. Do you want it?
Sure.
Well, I won't say it if it's not good. We won,
Oh.
57 to 45.
Ooh, wow.
That's a heck of a comeback.
We had the inside scoop all along.
That's a great comeback.
29-25 at the half.
Wait, let me make
Losing,
sure it said
right?
Hill and
Yeah.
not HN.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better check that, because they were losing. You
It
got
says
it?
Hill, right, Mrs. O'Connor?
The Shepherd Hill did
Yes,
win.
it does.
Mr. Packard has it too.
It's a
Okay.
great
Yeah, pay the
great
attention.
fourth quarter.
All right,
Thank you.
good job, girls.
Oh, that's good. Audson was next.
The only thing,
Question, do you think it should be noted that Bay Pass per pupil expenditure is different because it's a vocational high school? I think it's rather, there's such a disparity
little
between
deceiving.
us and people aren't going to understand they're at $18,000 because it's a vocational high school. They're funded higher because their cost of their, vocational programs.
I'd rather
is-
take them out than say that.
I would suggest
take
that
it
you
out
take
too.
them out. It's
Because
not
I don't
fair
want to
co-
say anything
It's
about
not a
any
fair
other school.
comparison.
Yeah. We'll start with Southbridge.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But, well, we won't get into that. We'll just take them out.
Okay, it's different.
Okay, that concludes the
just one
discussion.
thing, Mrs. O'Coin.
Oh,
I
I'm
just wanted to-
sorry,
No, it's
Jeff.
okay.
I
It's
didn't
my
see it.
fault. And I don't have an answer to this, so I'm just sort of throwing it out there right now. I don't have a solution, but it's just a question. I'm wondering about the order in which these appear on the sheet. And again, I need to look at it a little further to
Right.
see what a better alternative would be. But I think that there might be something in the order too that we could shuffle around here. Just a
Okay.
thought. You know,
Any
as
specifics?
people look at it, I'm a big charts and graphs guy. I'm a bit, I like that stuff and
It should be closer to the front.
in talking to folks just briefly over the weekend, I think I had mentioned to you, and it's not for, that people aren't very caring, because they are. It was more a matter of just not being knowledgeable. Like, when you talk about being at the bottom in regional school per pupil expenditure, people were like, really? Is that right? And it's like, again, it's not that people are inattentive or don't care. It's just those kind of things really stick out. And for me, I like to see that like further up in the order, but
Okay.
it's just a thought.
Anyone else? Okay. So we'll move on to the next item. Director of Finance and Operations report, Mr. Matthew.
Thank you very much. This evening, I do have a couple of donations for the school committee to consider. First is a donation of a number of computer monitors, anywhere between 6 and 8. Mr. D'Arcangelo has indicated that the district can utilize this equipment, so I would recommend acceptance of this. They're appropriate size and are not just being passed on to us so that we can dispose of them in a year.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you. Additionally, the Heritage Elementary School has received 2 donations, one from the Charlton PTO in the amount of $1,040 to support a trip to the Worcester Art Museum, and the second is from ExxonMobil's Education Alliance Program in the amount of $500. This donation is to be used for the maintenance and support of the school in the area of math and/or science.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve, to accept the donations.
Second.
Discussion?
Question, will the PTO donations be coming for everything, or is this a particular?
No, the PTO donations are donations to the district, so they should flow
Okay.
through the donation account.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous.
Thank you. The bid for the new district school bus is out. It's anticipated to be opened on March 14th at 3 p.m. Depending on results and information, we may be able to accept the bid at the 14th meeting. At worst case, it'll be the March 28th meeting.
Do we have any takers?
We've sent out, I think, 3 bids so far, so at least there's a little bit of competition. We already went over the FY19 budget, and in terms of warrants, I'll be listing the warrants to be signed in my memo going forward, and we'll have color-coordinated folders so that everybody's clear about warrants that were approved by subcommittee, unsigned warrants, and payroll and deduction warrants. And in terms of the warrant policy, we had reviewed that at the last meeting. The one request for a modification was to include language around newly elected school committee members. What I included, but I would like to get the school committee's opinion on, and I believe I already know Mrs. Rabbit's opinion. I wrote, new members are encouraged to attend training by the district or from other state organizations for newly elected school committee members prior to signing warrants. I believe, Mrs. Rabbit, not to speak for you, but you'd like to see that as required, not
Yes.
encouraged.
Okay? Any-
It's not a policy, it's procedure. You
It's
do
a
it.
Oh, I'm sorry,
procedure.
procedure,
It
yes,
says procedure
yes,
on it.
yes, it does say procedure.
Thanks.
You mentioned Friday.
Oh, yes, and we will have training, I guess weather dependent now, breaking in the last couple of hours, 3 p.m. On Friday for signing of warrants and in terms of what to look for.
And Mary, when you needed your, to be signed the warrant, it'll be in the red folder for you if Donna calls. Okay, thank you for volunteering.
Can we plan an alternate date in the event that there's some kind of cancellation?
Sure, if Friday doesn't work out, we'll do it probably the next Friday, I would guess.
Yeah, because Mindy's here on
On Fridays, right,
Fridays,
that's why
so-
we're trying to coordinate for that.
So we'll reach
So,
out about that.
Yeah, are we comfortable with changing that to required for new school committee members?
Well, the only
It's
problem with
important.
that is, if it's not, if you put required and they don't do it, that means they can't sign, is that the point?
Correct. If they're not
Okay.
trained, they shouldn't sign anyway.
No, I'm just saying that automatically eliminates from signing the warrant, that's what it means.
Everybody agrees to that?
What does it say, with required within what? Well, how, within-
I said encouraged.
but, I mean, but what does it say, required by how, before they can sign any?
Yes.
So it doesn't say a timeline, just they can't until they sign.
I
Until they-
like the
Until
way
I-
you had it, but that's my opinion. Do we have the majority that want it required?
Well, in the upcoming year, you'll have 2 new members, so you'll still have enough people to
Right, even if-
sign,
even if
if
there's
they
a
don't
delay in them.
take the training.
So you want it required? Everybody wants the word required.
My
Well,
only
the-
question,
the
go ahead.
training wouldn't take a long time anyway, right? So, I mean, it's a lot of money. So I think whoever is signing
Yeah.
the warrant should know what they're doing. So I think it's important, I think it should be required, because if we're having new people come on board, I know when I came on board, I didn't know what I was doing, and I needed training. So I would strongly recommend that we say it's required for all new members.
It's the role of the school committee. We're the fiduciary
Right.
agents for the taxpayers. We should be trained in what we're doing.
That's why I was wondering, should we put a time limit at the, like within a month or something? Yeah,
I mean, I think there's flexibility. People can't sign until they do. I mean, we could, our new boards are, in place by June. If they run charting the course through the summer, our treasurer works every Friday.
Right.
So, I mean, if you wanted to put it within, s- 60 days or 90 days, I think by September is reasonable, that we would think within 3 months people can get trained.
Just leave it the way it's required.
Well, we'll offer it right away.
Right.
Right, yeah, we'll make
And
it
if it's only
clear.
one person, they can make the
They
time in the
can make
morning,
their
or else it's
own
easier when you're
appointment,
training one
yeah.
person instead of 7.
All right,
Okay, are you clear on that now?
yep,
Okay,
and that's all I have for this evening.
all right, thank you. And the next is strategic plan update, and Mr. Desto probably will do it.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. O'Coin, and this is really just a quick update for the committee to let you know in case you had forgotten that we're still doing this. I put a draft in your package on Friday, and that draft represents the work of many people from within and outside the school community. The administrative team has been consistently revisiting this plan to ensure that the things we've put in there are the things that we believe are most important for our kids, and there is still time for input from the school committee and the strategic planning committee, but we believe that we've done a really good job of capturing the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish, and we're pretty excited about where we're at. Just some quick highlights I included, I gave just a quick outline for tonight, which says strategic planning update in gold letters. Quick highlights, reminder, we have 3 competencies within our plan: academic competencies, personal competencies, and interpersonal. Some examples of what we are working toward are in academic, upgrading the infrastructure of technology, professional development for technology integration and digital learning, project-based learning. These are words you've been hearing over and again. Financial literacy, civic education. Some examples from the personal section. Personal competencies are a motto of everyone matters. It's a separate thing from children and community. It doesn't take the place of the district's overall motto, but it's an emphasis 7 schools wide to try to help us understand each other's differences, because even though we are not racially diverse, we are diverse in many other ways. The expectation of kindness and respect, high school internships, additional technology staff at the elementary level, and of course manageable class sizes is still a priority. Interpersonal presentation and communication skills, exposure to global cultures, and increased opportunities for foreign language. The timeline that I foresee is right for the month of March. We would be continuing to review and make adjustments by the administration, school committee, and strategic planning team. The month of April, we would finalize the plan and request school committee approval of the plan at the April 25th meeting. Then for the months of May and June, we'll be printing and publicizing the plan to staff and community, and on July 1st, 2018, the plan takes effect. Just a quick update to give you an idea where we are, and I'll do this every couple of meetings or so all along.
Any questions? Okay.
Mr. O'Connor, can I just go back on this lacrosse program? Do we have to approve that?
Gosh, I forgot to put that in. I forgot to say something about that.
Okay.
He was doing donations, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
and I
If we
had
could,
it
I would
too.
like to.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding us. You want to mention that one, Rich? It's, and thanks to
It was-
lacrosse coach and assistant athletic director Mark Kelly, who wrote a grant to the U.S. Lacrosse Association. Is that what they call them? Yeah, U.S. Lacrosse. And this is called the First Stick program, and I guess it's pretty tough to get. And he's been chipping away at this for a few years now, and finally got really the mother lode of a grant here. It's $10,500 worth of equipment that should take care of us for a significant amount of time. So all the equipment is listed there. I won't read through all of it, but it's very,
That's
very, very helpful to our athletic program and to our lacrosse kids. So I
We'll
guess
have
we'd
to accept the,
entertain a motion to accept
yeah.
that donation as well.
right. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion on it? All in
Well,
favor?
send Mr. Kelly, did you send Mr. Kelly a letter telling him how?
We will. Well, I've already sent him an email, but
Okay.
yeah, we can
From
do
the
that.
school committee?
That's
Sure.
great. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. That brings us up to Special Education Parent Advisory Council update. Mrs. Rabbit?
Just moving forward, we've had interest from Mr. Batar, who's a parent in the district that moved in, to resurrect the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Mr. Ferranti, Mr. Batar and I met a week ago. I was, in the past CPAC, I was vice chair and was able to provide a lot of information, which included the bylaws that had been previously accepted. We are scheduling a meeting on March 21st that will be open to parents throughout the district and interested staff or community members that would like to come in as we reestablish this. But we wanted to bring this to the school committee's attention because the CPAC is a responsibility of the school committee in order to move forward to hold a meeting to establish a board. We need to have some general authority for that one meeting, either myself, Mr. Batar, or to open up nominations and elect board members so that we can officially have the CPAC started. The hope is to have a few meetings before the end of the year, establish a board and a calendar for the 2018-2019 school year and move forward. So if we can just get a blessing from the school committee that we can move forward with that and hold elections on the 21st, we can move forward with picking a location and setting an agenda and notifying parents in the district.
We're all in agreement.
Thank you.
Good luck, and I hope we have a good attendance that evening.
Let me know if you need help publicizing it.
We will, I'm sure we'll probably meet again, but I'm going to just, honestly, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Batar to be the person I volunteered to work as a liaison at this point in time with them to establish it, but I think it's best for a parent to be kind of running the show on the 21st.
Surprise.
Deflect.
Okay.
I
Considering.
want to thank him for, please, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
I want to thank Mr. Batar for stepping up, because I was not aware that we have been under a waiver from the state for not having a CPAC. It's actually a mandatory requirement by law that we have it. So I'm very happy that he stepped forward and reached out to Mr. Ferrante to reestablish this. He's already had a meeting at his house with parents that are interested, so I'm happy that he's taken action on this.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, consideration of requests for non-resident enrollment, policy JF. Mr. Desto.
Thank you, Ms. Silcoin. I have one request for the committee tonight. It's a former Dudley resident who has requested that her daughter be able to complete this school year at Mason Road. The family has had to move to another town, a neighboring town, due to something beyond their control. And so the family does intend to return to a home in Dudley or to enroll the child in the School of Residence for next year. I recommend approval.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion.
They'll be
Seeing-
taking care of transportation.
Of course, yep. It's always in the letter.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Consideration of requests for home instruction, policy IHGB.
Thank you, Ms. Silcoin. So it's not, it's abnormal that we get a request this late in the year, but this is a family who has recently moved to Dudley from another town and had been homeschooling their child in that town and have submitted a request to just finish, at least finish this year with their homeschool program for their grade 5 and grade 9 children. So I recommend your approval with the hope that we will get them into our schools next year.
Okay,
So
Ellen.
moved. Second.
All right. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries, it's unanimous. And approval of the warrants, and this evening we do have warrants. And next meeting dates, school committee meeting, Wednesday, March 14th. It'll be at Shepherd Hill Regional High School, and that will be our public hearing. Wednesday, March 28th, 2018, that will be at Charlton Middle School, and it will be at 7 p.m. Budget and Finance Subcommittee, Tuesday, March 6th, 9 a.m. at the district office. Future agenda items, budget, MSBA update, strategic planning. Does anyone else have anything? I will put the cafeteria.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, the
yeah,
lunch policy.
The lunch policy. Who else? Anybody else?
Could we possibly verify when the district show choir show is? I think it's the same day as our April 11th school committee meeting, and I would like to attend the show choir district show.
It's on a Wednesday?
I think it's on
Yeah.
a Wednesday.
I don't blame you.
Where is it? Is it at Chapel?
Mhm.
I could, yeah, we do have, I know that we have a meeting that night. I could have that, an answer for you within 24 hours on that, for sure. I don't,
And what time does the show, what time does it start?
it would be, like, it would cover the whole time.
We'll
that we're-
talk about it. Maybe we can meet earlier or on another date, but check that out first.
I will.
Thank you.
And that comes, is that the night you can't get a parking spot, or was that some Christmas, you couldn't get a parking
Right.
spot, there was some.
Well, there was a night that we had
A
a,
Christmas
like a playoff basketball game and a show
Yeah, was
at
it-
the
you
same
said we were
time.
parking all
That's a
over the place.
disaster.
Okay, anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.